Harry once said Meghan gets whatever she wants.
Engelson, the Hollywood producer who once shared a life and a last name with Meghan Markle, has spent years being conveniently written out of the royal story.
The date is January 23rd, 2026, Montecito, California. Behind the tall, locked gates of a luxury estate, one of the most famous men alive is reportedly falling apart. Not in front of cameras, not in some polished Netflix interview. This is private, quiet, heavy. The kind of silence that hits after a truth so intense it shakes everything you thought was real. Prince Harry, the man who stood up to the royal system and walked away from his titles, his country, and his own family, is now facing a question no one prepared him for. Was the woman he gave up everything for hiding a whole life he never got to see? And the man linked to those answers? Not a royal, not a reporter, a Hollywood producer, a name many people forgot, Meghan Markle's first husband, Trevor Engelson. Stay locked in because this isn't just drama. It's being called the final chapter of one of the most complicated love stories tied to the royal world. By the end, one question hits hard. Did Prince Harry ever truly know Meghan Markle? The man who once said, Meghan gets whatever she wants, is now reportedly filled with regret. To understand how things reached this point in 2026, you have to rewind, not to Oprah, not to big public announcements, but back to 2018. A prince stands at St. George's Chapel, making a choice that would change his life forever. Leading up to that wedding, insiders say Harry was completely wrapped up in his love for Meghan. People involved in the planning even recalled his bold words, Meghan gets whatever she wants, as he pushed everything forward fast. The relationship that started in July 2016 moved fast. Real fast. By May 2018, just 22 months after their first date, they were already standing in front of the world saying their vows. In royal terms, that speed raised serious eyebrows. Royal marriages usually go through deep checks, long reviews and intense scrutiny as standard procedure. This? It felt rushed, almost reckless to some insiders. But Harry was in love, and when Harry falls hard, he moves fast and pushes everything forward. Now in 2026, a big question is hanging in the air. Was that speed intentional? Was everything moving so quickly that it blocked the kind of deep-digging royal relationships usually go through? Because right now, Harry is reportedly not just thinking about it, he's angry about it. Sources close to the Sussex circle say his mood has shifted into what some are calling aggressive victimhood. The same man who once stood as Meghan's biggest defender is now being described as flipping the script in a shocking way. He's now reportedly blaming the royal family for letting the marriage happen at all. Let that sink in. The same Harry who made Meghan global news, who spoke openly in that Oprah interview, who shared personal details in his memoir, is now said to be pointing fingers back at the palace. According to these claims, Harry believes the palace failed to properly look into Meghan's background. He reportedly argues that back in 2017, he was emotionally vulnerable, still dealing with personal loss and pressure, and needed stronger guidance. In his view, the palace, often called the men in grey suits, should have stepped in, slowed things down, and protected him from rushing in. But instead, he allegedly feels they held back, worried about how it would look if they questioned the relationship too closely. Some now claim the process was rushed, like a massive green light was given to a £32 million wedding built on missing pieces. So the question hits hard. Does Harry actually have a point, or is this one of the biggest attempts to dodge responsibility the royal world has seen? And just wait until you hear what Princess Anne reportedly said, because it cuts deep. But before that, you need to understand why Harry has reached this point, because this isn't just theory, this is personal, messy, and tied to one man, Trevor Engelson. So who is he? And why is his name suddenly causing tension? If you've followed this story, you've probably heard Trevor's name brushed off like a side note, the starter marriage. The Hollywood producer Meghan was with for 7 years, married in 2011 during a 4-day wedding in Jamaica, then divorced by 2013. There's even that story people repeat, that her ring was sent back by FedEx. That detail stuck around as a symbol of how quickly things ended, but there's way more to Trevor than that label. Trevor Engelson isn't some forgotten ex. He's the founder of Underground Films, a real player in Hollywood with strong industry ties. He helped produce Snowfall, a hit FX drama that pulled serious attention and success. Reports say his net worth is over $10 million, and he's known as someone who knows how to survive and stay relevant in a tough industry. After the divorce, he didn't fade away. He rebuilt, remarried Tracy Kurland, and created a quiet but solid life. While Meghan's life exploded into global headlines, Trevor stayed silent, completely silent. And that's exactly why what's been happening since early 2026 is starting to raise serious questions. This is where things start shaking both Hollywood and Buckingham Palace, because reports claim Trevor Engelson is no longer staying quiet, but he didn't come out with a big interview or a tell-all book. Instead, insiders describe something way more controlled, a quiet flow of information, a so-called dossier filled with details from Meghan's life before fame. And now people are asking, why now? Engelson reportedly isn't chasing money. By all accounts, he's doing well, steady career, solid life. So this doesn't look like a cash grab. Some people close to the situation say it's something more personal, something human, a sense of unfinished business. A man who felt blindsided after a long relationship ended is now allegedly tired of watching that same story be rewritten in public. Whether that's true or not, what really has people on edge is what he supposedly has access to. And the most talked about part. It points back to Meghan's earlier years, even before their relationship, her time at Northwestern University between 1999 and 2003. Now listen carefully, because this part matters. What's being discussed here includes claims that are not confirmed. There are no verified records, no official documents, no solid legal proof backing these stories. These ideas have mostly spread through tabloids, online discussions, and social media chatter. Many experienced journalists and legal experts have treated them with serious doubt. But here's why this still matters. Not because the claims are proven, but because of the impact they are reportedly having behind closed doors, inside Harry's world, and within palace circles. Because here's the truth. An allegation doesn't need proof to cause damage. It just needs the right person to believe it at the worst possible moment. And according to reports, that's exactly what's happening right now. At the center of all this is a shocking claim that Meghan Markle's marriage to Trevor Engelson may not have been her second, but her third. That's what unverified rumors floating around online are saying. The story goes like this. At just 19, while studying at Northwestern University, Meghan allegedly entered a legal marriage with a man named Joseph Goldberg Giuliano. That name has only appeared in rumors. Nothing officially confirmed. The claim continues, saying the marriage was quickly erased, possibly annulled and wiped from public records, with some suggesting the man's wealthy family stepped in and shut it down fast. Now let's be clear, none of this has been proven, no solid documents, no official confirmation, nothing concrete. But if it were true, it would mean Meghan's past was more complicated than what was publicly known when she joined the royal family in 2018. And in royal circles, where every detail is examined closely, where history and background actually matter, something like that would raise serious questions. That's the kind of idea that's reportedly been weighing on Harry. But even with how explosive that sounds, it's not the claim people say pushed him the furthest emotionally. There's another theory, and it's even more intense. It's being called the abandoned child claim. And again, this comes from online discussions and videos, not verified evidence. According to these rumors, a child was allegedly born from that supposed early relationship and later given up in a way that removed any trace from public view. Some versions of the story even try to link this to Meghan's extended family, but there's no proof connecting any of it. These claims are highly speculative and could be completely false. Still, think about the impact. For Prince Harry, who has built his life around being a present and protective father, these kinds of rumors, real or not, would hit hard. The idea alone, that there could be a child Harry never knew about, is being described as mentally overwhelming for him. Just think about that for a second. Harry has spent years cosking about protecting children, about being present, about showing up as a real father. He's shared emotional stories about Archie and Lilibet, building his whole image around being a protector. Now imagine hearing claims that suggest a completely different story tied to the person he trusts most, a past he was never told about. According to reports, that clash hit everything he believed about her. Sources close to their circle say that between January 15th and January 20th, 2026, things inside their Montecito home got intense. Arguments reportedly escalated to a level where voices could be heard beyond the walls. Harry is said to have demanded what insiders call the full truth about Meghan's past, especially her time at Northwestern. For the first time, that united front, the us against everyone image, started breaking apart. And Harry's role, it reportedly flipped fast, from defender to someone asking hard questions. He allegedly reached out to old UK security contacts, trying to understand why nothing like this ever came up before. There are also claims he spent hours alone, either locked in his study or driving through the hills, clearly trying to process everything. And when the two did talk, those conversations were described as direct and heavy. One line, reportedly said by Harry, has been spreading fast. "I gave up my country for a version of you that might not exist." Whether exact or not, that quote captures the tension people are talking about. Because at the center of all this is one thing. His entire new life was built on trust, on belief, on her story. And now, proven or not, that foundation is being shaken hard. So when this situation reportedly reached London, the royal family didn't stay quiet. They sent in Princess Anne. And what followed is being described as a serious lesson in accountability. If there's one royal known for being the backbone of the institution, it's Princess Anne. The Princess Royal has a reputation that's solid, no confusion, no softness where it doesn't belong. For decades, she's shown that duty and discipline aren't limits, they are the mission. On January 21st, 2026, Anne made her move. Not with a speech, not with a polished post, and definitely not with anything flashy. This was quiet, calculated, and precise, handled through back channels the British system has mastered over time. The first issue she reportedly addressed was the legal side of these Northwestern claims, and the message coming through her office was clear. Even if those allegations were true, Meghan was legally an adult at the time. She had every right to make her own choices, and more importantly, by the time of the 2018 royal wedding, both Harry and Meghan were officially confirmed as legally single. The palace had already checked that status before the marriage, so legally speaking, that wedding at St. George's Chapel stands firm. No loopholes, no questions. With that, Anne drew a sharp line. She separated legal facts from emotional reactions, and then turned to the bigger issue. Because when it came to Harry's claim that the palace should have stepped in and protected him from his own decisions, Anne's reported response was cold and direct. Harry wasn't a kid. He wasn't inexperienced. He was a man in his 30s, someone who had served in Afghanistan, someone who understood pressure, responsibility, and public life. And the message was clear. This wasn't on the palace. Harry didn't just accept royal life. He fought hard for the freedom to make his own choices without interference. That's key. The Crown gave him everything. A £32 million wedding, full royal approval, global status. So now, turning around and saying the family failed him by not stopping the marriage. That didn't sit right with Anne at all. Reports say she didn't just disagree. She saw it as a direct hit to the strength Harry once claimed to have. This wasn't soft feedback. This was a firm verdict. And Anne wasn't done yet, because after addressing the legal side and Harry's personal claims, she reportedly turned to what matters most. The children, Archie and Lilibet. And this is where things got serious. Sources say Anne expressed deep frustration, not just at them as individuals, but at the situation surrounding those kids. All the public tension, the back and forth stories, the leaks, the rumours. It's all happening while two young children are caught in the middle of a global spotlight they never asked for. Her message, as shared through insiders, was simple but heavy. These children were brought into the world through love, and now they need stability, not chaos. Not public battles, not constant headlines, not pressure from every direction. That's the line she reportedly drew. And with that, Anne flipped the narrative. Instead of the royal family looking cold or distant, she positioned them as the steady side, the ones focused on protecting the next generation, the ones thinking about the kids first, even when things around them get messy. But then she pushed even further. She addressed the most controversial theory directly, the idea of a child from Meghan's past. Not confirming it, not denying it. Instead, she reframed it completely. According to sources, Anne's stance was this: if such a child exists, then the responsibility is clear. Meghan, with her public image and resources, would have a moral duty to face that truth head-on. That statement changed everything, because it didn't claim the rumour was real. It challenged how it would be handled if it was. It turned a wild allegation into a serious question of character. a moment that demands a response or leaves silence to speak instead. That's not just strategy, that's pressure at the highest level. That right there, a calculated chess move. And inside the palace, it hit harder than anyone expected. Just as people were still reacting to Princess Anne's statements, a whole new situation exploded. And this one came out of nowhere. Not from Montecito, but from Sandringham. Queen Camilla, according to palace insiders, was absolutely furious. But not at Harry, not at Meghan, at Anne. To understand why, you have to look at Camilla's past, honestly and directly, just like Anne was demanding from everyone else. Camilla Parker Bowles lived through years of public judgment. She was labelled as the third person in a royal marriage, faced intense media pressure, and brought her own children into that royal spotlight. Her journey from controversy to queen wasn't quick or easy. It took time, silence, discipline, and a carefully rebuilt image based on duty and consistency. So when Anne started speaking about responsibility, transparency, and facing the truth about complicated pasts, it didn't land the same way for Camilla. According to sources, Camilla didn't just hear a general message. She felt like those words were aimed directly at her history. The talk about hidden pasts, previous relationships, and moral responsibility, it reportedly felt personal. Whether Anne meant it that way or not didn't even matter at that point. The reaction was real, and it was intense. Then came January 22nd, 2026. During what insiders describe as a private dinner at Sandringham, the tension finally snapped. King Charles, already dealing with pressure from Harry's situation and everything surrounding it, suddenly found himself stuck in the middle. Two powerful voices, two strong perspectives, and a situation that was no longer just private. It was turning into a full internal clash. Camilla's response wasn't just emotional, it was strategic too. Reports say she accused Anne of going too far, of feeding the media storm and giving Trevor Engelson exactly what he needed: attention and validation. From her point of view, even indirectly addressing the rumors gave them weight. It turned speculation into something the palace now had to deal with publicly. And worse, it reportedly made things harder for King Charles to smooth things over with Harry. Any quiet attempt to fix the relationship? Now complicated. Anne, though, didn't back down at all. Sources say her stance stayed firm, almost unshakable. Her argument, silence, hadn't worked for years. Ignoring the situation didn't make it disappear. In her view, the only way forward was to deal with it directly, cut it off clean instead of hoping it fades away. And what's happening behind those palace walls now? It's way bigger than just Harry and Meghan. This is a deeper clash, a battle over what the modern monarchy should actually be. Anne's side stands for strict standards, the belief that the monarchy survives by holding itself to a higher line, no matter how uncomfortable that gets. If something crosses that line, it has to be addressed. No exceptions. Camilla's side takes a different approach, more flexible, more human. The idea that the monarchy lasts because it adapts, because it understands people aren't perfect, because if you push too hard on accountability, it can come back around and hit everyone. And which side wins? That could change everything. Because if Anne's approach takes control, it could open the door to something serious, the possible use of the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. Legal voices have already started talking quietly. If claims about undisclosed history were ever proven, it could give King Charles a legal path to remove titles, not out of emotion, but as a formal response. And that's not just talk. That's a real possibility being discussed. This isn't just talk, it's a real legal tool that exists and has been used before. And now it's reportedly being discussed behind palace doors. But before jumping to the final outcome, there's something bigger that can't be ignored anymore. Lost in all the noise, titles, investigations, arguments, is the reality of two young children living right in the middle of this, Archie and Lilibet, just 6 and 4 years old. Kids who didn't choose any of this yet were born into a situation filled with pressure, headlines, and constant attention. They've grown up surrounded by tension most adults wouldn't even know how to handle. And now, with reports of cracks in their parents' relationship and rising pressure from the palace, one question stands out above everything else. Who is actually putting these children first? Princess Anne made her stance clear. Whatever her motives, her message strongly focused on their well-being. She wasn't just talking about past decisions, she was pushing for responsibility right now, urging Harry and Meghan to step back from public conflict and think about what their kids are experiencing daily. The environment, The stress, the constant noise, that becomes their childhood. And that message hit differently in Britain, because no matter what people think about Harry and Meghan, there's still a strong instinct to protect the children caught in the middle. But Anne's comments also opened the door to a more difficult question. Because if those online claims, still unproven, had any truth at all, then this story might not involve just 2 children, but possibly a third. Someone older, possibly in their early 20s based on the timeline being discussed. A person who may be living a completely normal life, away from cameras, away from headlines, and possibly unaware of any connection to this situation. No confirmation, no proof, just speculation. But even the idea adds another layer to an already complicated story. And it raises a serious point. How many lives could be affected by something that may not even be fully understood yet? Anne addressed this part with serious clarity, and that's what made her message hit so hard. She reportedly made one thing clear. If that person exists, silence is not an option. No legal tricks, no quiet avoidance. The response has to be human, direct, and honest. And in her view, Meghan, who has built a public image around supporting others, should be capable of facing something like that head-on. Now, whether any of these claims are true or not, nobody can say for sure. But the way Anne framed it changed everything. She shifted the focus from gossip to something deeper, a question of responsibility and character. Because this isn't something that can be handled with PR moves or carefully planned interviews. You can't repackage something like this. You can't spin parenthood. You either face it or you don't, and people will form their own opinions based on that choice. Meanwhile, back in Montecito, the focus quietly turns to the children we do see, Archie and Lilibet. Reports suggest efforts are being made to keep their lives stable. Daily routines, school runs, activities, all still happening to create a sense of normal life. From the outside, things may look controlled, but that doesn't mean everything feels that way inside. Because kids notice more than people think. They pick up on tension, on changes in energy, on the emotional tone around them, even when no one explains it. And right now, the atmosphere in that home is said to feel far from peaceful, and that might be the most serious part of all this. Not the rumours, not the palace strategy, not even the questions about the past, but the image of 2 young children growing up in the middle of stress they didn't create and can't escape. In the end, Anne's message to Harry and Meghan was simple but powerful. Be parents first. Because everything else, the titles, the image, the headlines, comes after that. Whether that message reaches Montecito or changes anything at all, that's still unclear. So now the real question is this. What happens next? Where does this leave Harry, Meghan, the royal family, and most importantly, the children in the middle of all this noise? Let's step back and look at the bigger picture, because this goes beyond drama. Right now, Harry appears to be in a deeply fragile place emotionally. This is a man who made one of the biggest personal choices in modern royal history. He walked away from a 1,000-year-old institution, from royal life, from his country, and from much of his family. And he did it in the name of love, truth, and a relationship he presented as the most important bond of his life. So if any of these claims about Meghan's past had any truth behind them, and that remains unproven, it would shake the entire story Harry told the world about why he left. Because then the sacrifice, the loyalty, the certainty, all of it would suddenly look less solid. The picture he built in his mind could start falling apart. And that wouldn't just be painful, it would be deeply personal. For someone who has built his image around honesty, accountability, and exposing what he sees as the truth, that kind of doubt would cut hard. It wouldn't be just a relationship problem. It would be a full identity crisis. And his reported reaction, shifting blame toward the royal family for not stopping him, says a lot too. It suggests he may not be ready to fully face his own role in the choices he made, because in the end, he made them. He pushed the timeline, he stood by the relationship, he said, Meghan gets whatever she wants, and he meant it. The palace didn't force Harry into anything. Whatever issues people have with the system, no one made him fall in love. And Princess Anne made that point clear, sharp, direct, and with zero hesitation. Now Meghan is reportedly in unfamiliar territory. The skills she's known for, communication, image control, shaping narratives, are facing a different kind of pressure. Because this time, things aren't unfolding the way they usually do. And Harry, who was once her strongest defender, is no longer leading that defense the same way. Reports suggest he's asking questions now instead of making statements. That shift alone changes everything. And then there's that dossier, whatever it actually contains, somewhere between Hollywood and Buckingham Palace, creating tension just by existing. At the same time, it's important to stay grounded. The major claims being talked about, the alleged early marriage, the abandoned child theory, none of them are verified. No confirmed records, no solid proof. And history has shown that plenty of stories like this end up going nowhere. But still, one question keeps coming up. If these claims are completely false, why hasn't Meghan addressed them directly? This is someone who has spoken publicly before, who hasn't avoided big interviews or difficult topics. So the silence around these specific claims stands out. Maybe there's nothing to respond to. That's a real possibility. Or maybe staying quiet is a deliberate choice that sends its own message. And then there's Trevor Engelson, the figure who keeps coming up again. The man who knew Meghan before everything changed, before the titles, before the spotlight, before the global attention. For years, he said nothing. And now, that silence is starting to feel like part of the story itself. Whatever Engelson's real motive is, and right now it's all speculation, the timing of this alleged dossier doesn't look random at all. This is someone who understands storytelling. He works in television. He knows every story has a third act, and that timing is everything. And somehow January 2026 feels like that moment. So here's what we can actually say, cutting through all the noise. The Sussex narrative, the story of two people who gave up everything for love and truth, is under more pressure than ever before. And not from the media, not from the palace, but from inside the story itself. From questions, from doubt, from parts of the past that may not have been fully settled. Princess Anne has made one thing clear. The royal family is done staying silent while being painted as the villain. And instead of reacting with emotion, they're leaning into something stronger, accountability. Harry, on the other hand, is reportedly in a personal storm. A man who believed he had found peace is now facing the possibility that things aren't as stable as he thought. Whether those cracks are real or just perceived, that's still unknown. And Meghan, she's facing a different kind of pressure. Not headlines, not criticism. She's handled that before, but this is more personal. It's about trust, about belief, about how things look when the person closest to you starts asking questions instead of defending you. Because in today's world, stories don't just disappear. The past doesn't stay buried. People remember, records exist, and eventually things resurface, and that's where we are now. So what do you think? Does Harry have a point about the royal family? Or is this him avoiding responsibility for his own choices? And what about Princess Anne? Was her move smart and necessary, or did she go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated as this story keeps unfolding, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to see it.